رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. We continue with our reading of the book ملخص الفقه من علوم الإمام الألباني, the summarized fiqh from the works of Sheikh al-Albani, al-Imam al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, written by Abi Islam Sulaiman Mubarak rahimahullah ta'ala. I have placed in the chat the link for the one who comes in and wants to read. And we'll continue, inshallah, with the introduction, and we will enter into Tahara today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we will read the rest of the introduction, which is just basically two or a little over 2 pages, and then we'll read the first and maybe the second section from Kitab al-Tahara. And it would be nice if someone, once we enter into the kutub and the fusul, the books and the chapters or the sections, if someone would, inside of the comments, put a minute marker. So, for example, when we get to Kitab al-Tahara, you could say minute 13 and 55 seconds. And then Fasl Awwal, it'd be the same thing. Then Fasl Thani, for example, 18:22. And by doing so, I can take this and then put it inside of the description of the video, and it will become a chapter inside the video for easier access. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Abu Muhammad has joined us, so inshallah we're going to start in a second. I just want to say that you may have noticed on the thumbnails, I'm putting the pages from the book that we have covered. So from 13 to 16 and then 16 to 20. Today we're going to start on page 20. Inshallah, I'll continue. And I'll continue to put notes like that on the thumbnails. And if someone will make us timestamps, then we'll put that in the description and make it easier for everyone to access, inshallah, for review. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Abu Muhammad.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته أخي الكريم.
كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله بخير. كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله. نحمد الله إليكم. جاهزين؟
نعم.
طيب. وقد اطلع على هذا الكتاب.
نعم. وقد اطلع على هذا الكتاب ثلة من أهل العلم ومن طلاب الشيخ الألباني رحمه الله. So indeed, what is ثلة? ثلة or
ثلة.
ثلة. Okay. So indeed, people have from the students of Sheikh Albani have looked at this book. So is that the upmost or the senior students? Thulla.
Thulla means a group, like a number of, not just one or two, but a number of, like many. Thullatun min al-awwalin wa thullatun min al-akhirin. Right? Thullatun min al-awwalin or qalilun min al-awwalin or thullatun min al-awwalin wa qalilun min al-akhirin. Like the sabiqun, right? Those who proceed, there are many from the early generations and few from the later. As for the ashab al-yamin, thullatun min al-awwalin wa thullatun min al-akhirin. Many from the early and many from the later.
Yeah, so indeed, many of the students of knowledge have looked and read this book from the students of Sheikh Albani rahimahullah.
نعم.
فمنهم من قدم واطلع وراجع al-kitab. So from them is the one introduction, and they read and they reviewed the book.
نعم.
كفضيلة الشيخ.
فمنهم من قدم, meaning those people who wrote an introduction, and we didn't read their introductions, but we said that there are 3 or 4 introductions before the introduction of the author. We didn't read them just because that's like a praise for the book. We didn't need to necessarily do that and prolong our study, so we didn't read them, but we're reading the introduction of the author so we can see what his is meant, Bani's work himself.
كفضيلة الشيخ الدكتور زياد الإبادي, like the virtuous Sheikh Dr. زياد الإبادي, وفضيلة الدكتور باسم الجوابرة, وفضيلة
نعم.
الشيخ أبي حمام السلفي. And then like the virtuous Sheikh Dr. Basim Jawabira, and the virtuous Sheikh Abi Hammam السلفي. وقد تقدمت مقدماتهم واطلع عليه وراجعه فضيلة الشيخ الدكتور أكرم زيادة. So I need
نعم. So
yeah,
if we go from the context, تقدمت could be it, and I introduced or something like this. But when we read what تقدمت مقدماتهم, basically, and their مقدمات, their introductions have preceded تقدمت.
تقدمت.
تقدمت is possible, especially without the vowels. But once we look at it and we see no, تقدمت مقدماتهم.
Yeah, تقدمت مقدماتهم. Yeah, so the introductions have preceded, and they reviewed and looked into this was for the virtuous Sheikh Dr. Akram Ziyada.
نعم.
واطلع عليه فضيلة الشيخ إسام موسى حادي, and also the virtuous Sheikh Isam Musa Hadi also reviewed the book. وقال إن هذا الكتاب حوى فقه شيخنا الألباني رحمه الله تعالى. And then he said, indeed, this book contains contains the fiqh of the Sheikh of our Sheikh Al-Bani, may Allah have mercy upon him.
نعم. Let's just review this before we go. Inshallah, we continue. It says, وَقَدْ طَلَعَ عَلَى هَذَا الكتاب ثُلَّةٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ. I'm reading it again because your voice is kind of in and out a little bit. Right? وَقَدْ اطَّلَعَ عَلى هَذَا الكتاب ثُلَّةٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْعِلْمِ, and have reviewed this book, basically, a group of people of knowledge, وَمِن طُلَابِ الشيخ الألباني رحمه الله, and from students of Sheikh Al-Albani have reviewed this book. اطَّلَعَ has the meaning of to look at in detail, but it could also mean to look at or just to overview, to look through it and to skim through it. So it kind of depends on the context. Here, when we see that the sheikh, somebody will say this contains the fiqh of the sheikh and so on, then it means that they reviewed it in detail. They examined the book. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ قَدَّمَ وَاطَّلَعَ وَرَاجَعَ الْكِتَابِ. So from those are those who wrote an introduction and examined it and reviewed the book, like Sheikh زياد العبادي وباسم الجوابرة وأبي حمام السلفي, and وقد تقدمت مقدماتهم واطلع عليه وراجعه فضيلة الشيخ الدكتور أكرم زيادة. So Akram Ziyada, he reviewed the book and as well. واطلع عليه فضيلة الشيخ عصام موسى هادي, وقال إن هذا الكتاب حوى فقه شيخنا الألباني. And he said this book, Isam al-Hadi, he said this book contains the fiqh of our Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. So when we see that a number of people have reviewed this book and all of them are praising it, then it shows us the reason why, inshallah, I chose this book and the reason why it's important for us to read it and study it. It's not just one person that agreed with it, but 4, 5, 6 of the students of Sheikh Al Albani or more have all read it, and they all wrote an introduction to it for what he did in it. And so it shows that this is truly, if we study it, we will truly have studied the fiqh of the sheikh. It's not just like, well, okay, this is one book, but maybe other books have other things. It's possible you might get other benefits from other books by the sheikh, but this will truly contain the majority of the fiqh of the sheikh without contradictions, without this or without that, inshallah. تفضل أبا محمد. طيب, I'll read until he comes in, inshallah. ومنهم من اطلع على الكتاب بشكل عام. And from them are those who reviewed the book بشكل عام, meaning in a general way. Right? So the ones previously, they looked at it, reviewed it, compared it with what they knew from the sheikh and what they read and what they heard and looked at it, all that, examined it. But then there are those who came across the book and they reviewed it in a general way. كالعلامة المحدث أبي إسحاق الحويني, like Abu Ishaq al-Hawaini. وقد اطلع على بعض الكتاب وأثنى على هذا العمل. So he reviewed some of the book and he praised this action. وقد اطلع عليه بشكل عام. And again, another person, he reviewed it in a general manner. فضيلة الدكتور الشيخ حسين ابن عودة العويشة. Sheikh Hussein al-Awaysha from Jordan, from the students of Sheikh al-Albani, has many great books in English language. He reviewed it in a general manner as well. وقد أثنى على الكتاب, and he praised the book. والشيخ الدكتور حسين بن عودة العويشة له اطلاع واسع على فقه الشيخ الألباني. And Sheikh Hussein al-Awaysha, he's very familiar. He has a wide reading and perusal of the works and the fiqh of Sheikh al-Albani. مزيد, and more than that, مراجعة كتابه المسؤول الفقهية الميسرة التي ذكر فيها جل أقوال الشيخ الألباني رحمه الله واختياراته. Above that, or even to show how much Sheikh Hussein al-Awaysha is involved with the fiqh of Sheikh al-Albani, then he has a book called Al-Mawsu'at al-Fiqhiyya al-Muyassara. This book is 10 volumes. The encyclopedia of easy fiqh, or something like this. The easy encyclopedia of fiqh. In 10 volumes. And inside of it, he mentioned the majority of the statements of Sheikh al-Albani and his viewpoints, what he chose to be correct in the issue. كذلك اطلع عليه ثلة من طلاب الشيخ الألباني في داخل المملكة الأردنية وخارجها. Likewise, a number of the students of Sheikh al-Albani inside Jordan, the kingdom of Jordan, and outside of it, they reviewed it. وقام على تسمية الكتاب, and who named this book? It was written, but who named it? الملخص الفقهي من علوم الإمام الألباني, the summarized fiqh from the works of Al-Imam Al-Albani. وقام على تسمية هذا الكتاب فضيلة شيخنا العلامة Ali al-Halabi. So Ali al-Halabi is the one who named this book with its name. وحاولت, and I tried, أن يبقى الكتاب, to keep the book من كلام شيخ الألباني وعبارته دون التصرف. I tried to keep the book using the words من كلام شيخ الألباني, using the exact wordings of Sheikh al-Albani وعبارته, and his phrases. I tried to use it exactly as he says it in his books and in his tapes. دون تصرفي. A tasarruf here means to make any changes, to make any adaptations. Sometimes if you're quoting someone, you might be quoting them from the middle of the sentence. And so you have to add a word or something like this to make it clear. So he tried hard as hard as he could to keep it strictly with the words of Sheikh Al-Albani, دون التصرف, without any changes or adaptations, إلا في مواطن يسيرة, except for a few places, except for very few places. وفي بعض الفصول, and in some of the sections, التي لم أجد فيها قولا للشيخ, in some of the sections in which I did not find in them a statement from the sheikh or a statement belonging to the sheikh, meaning there could be a chapter in certain sections of marriage, for example, or certain issues of buyu, business transactions, in which Sheikh he didn't find, meaning Sulaiman Mubarak did not find Sheikh Al-Albani mentioned this issue, but yet it is famous in all of the books of fiqh. So if he did not find a statement from the Sheikh regarding it, he wasn't asked, he didn't speak about it. فقمت بنقل ما حسنه الشيخ من الأحاديث في ذلك الفصل. Then I transmitted what Sheikh Al-Albani graded Hasan or authentic from the hadith in that chapter. So for example, let's say there's an issue in business transactions that Sheikh Al-Albani didn't speak about. However, he graded a hadith authentic in that chapter in one of his books, but he didn't mention what he himself said about, or what he didn't discuss the issue at all, but he authenticated a hadith. Then Sheikh Sulaiman Mubarak brought that hadith in place of that section. وَنَثَرْتُ الْحَدِيث عَلَى نَسْقِ الْمَتْنِ, and I transmitted the hadith, I said the hadith, I wrote the hadith, نَسْقِ الْمَتْن, the way that it is in the book of hadith, right? Not according to the Sheikh's speech, but the way it is inside of the book of the hadith. وَتِلْكَ الْأَحَادِيث الَّتِي نَقَلْتُهَا, and those hadith which I transmitted them, meaning in this fashion, كانت من المسائل المجمع عليها. They are from the issues which there is an ijma' upon them. لأنه لا يشترط, because it is not a condition من تصحيح الشيخ للحديث, for it is not a condition from the sheikh making a hadith authentic and يأخذ به, and or يؤخذ, no, يأخذ به, that someone takes and uses it. So just because a hadith is authentic doesn't mean it is being used inside of some fiqh practice. And that's a longer discussion. If you want to go see what Sheikh Mashhour said, and it's in English, about the fasting on Yom Sabt, fasting on Saturdays, then you'll find out more about a hadith being authentic but yet not being used or taken. Then the Sheikh, he says, and we're almost done with the introduction, a few more paragraphs. He says, وَأَشَارَ شَيْخُنَا الْأَلَّامُ مَشْهُورُ حَسَن, and Sheikh Mashhour Hassan al-Salman, he pointed out على تغيير مصطلح, to change some of the
Terminology.
mustalah, the terminology, barakallahu feek, the terminology يجوز ولا يجوز. So a lot of times the Sheikh would say يجوز ولا يجوز, وجعله من المصطلحات الأصولية, and he made them from the terminology of the scholars of usul. فنظرت في سياق الأقوال شيخنا الألباني, so then I looked into the siyaq, the way that the Sheikh would say certain things. فإذا كان المراد من قوله يجوز, so if the meaning of his statement يجوز, meaning it's permissible, that's what it seems to mean, يجوز. If the meaning of his statement يجوز was al-ibaha or sunnah, what did he mean by yajuz? He meant it's permissible or it's sunnah. وَضَعْتُهَا بِقَوْلِ يُبَاح أو يُسَن. Then I made it to say yubah or yusan. Sometimes the sheikh might say yajuz and he means it's permissible. Sometimes I say meaning mubah. Sometimes he might say yajuz and he means it's sunnah, it's mustahab. So therefore he changed it. The word permissible could mean in the Sheikh's speech, it could mean just simply permissible, right? Like drinking orange juice is permissible, right? And it could be sunnah, for example, taking 3 drinks and so on and so forth. So the Sheikh might say yajuz for this and he might say yajuz for that. So the Sheikh Sulaiman Mubarak, with the advice of Sheikh Mashhur Hassan Salman, went and changed it and made it to permissible and sunnah so that it would become clear for us. وإذا كان مراد من قوله ينهى أو لا يجوز, and if it was intended by his statement he prohibited or it's not permissible, al-hurma or al-kiraha, what was meant by these statements, is it prohibited or disliked, then he changed it to yahrum wa yakrah, or yuhram wa yukrah, that it is not permissible and it is disliked. So basically what he's saying here is he went and he made the speech of the sheikh clearer. Sometimes the sheikh would use general terms, and if someone is not familiar with that, how the sheikh is using it, then they might take it to mean something other than what it means. And this happens a lot in the scholars. For example, the scholars of the past used to say yambaghi wa la yambaghi, meaning it befitting or is necessary. Does it mean it's like someone should do it or someone has to do it, or someone shouldn't do it or someone must not do it? And you must learn the terminology of the person that you are taking from. And so the Sheikh, he made it clear for us in this book, alhamdulillah. وهذا كله جاء باستقراء كلام الشيخ في كل مسألة. And this has come in agreement with the kalam of the sheikh, with the speech of the sheikh in every issue. So he went through every issue and clarified this for us. وجعلت الكتاب كتبا مبوبة على أبواب الفقه. And I made the book into books and chapters upon the chapters of fiqh. وجعلت تحت كل كتاب فصولا. And I made under every book sections. This is just how we read in Bukhari or any other fiqh book or hadith book. We have Kitab al-Salah, and under it we have many other chapters and sections. So the Shaykh here did the same thing. Tabi'atan lahu wa ja'altuha muraqqama. And I made it, I numbered these chapters. I numbered these chapters. I didn't number the books, but I numbered the chapters. بتوجيه من شيخنا Ali al-Halabi, with advice, basically tawjih, with direction or advice from Shaykhana, our Shaykh Ali al-Halabi. So here Ali al-Halabi is the one who also told him to number the sections. وأسأل الله أن يبارك في هذا الكتاب, and I ask Allah to put blessings in this book. وأن يكون خالصا لله تعالى, and that it be sincere for Allah Azza wa Jal, the Most High. وما كان من توفيقي فمن الله وحده, and whatever was successful, whatever you find is being correct and successful in this book, then it's from Allah alone. وما كان من تقصير فمن نفسي ومن الشيطان, and whatever you find of shortcomings in the book, then it's from me and from myself and from shaitan. وأحيب بأهل العلم من علماء وطلبة العلم والناصحين, and I appeal to the people of knowledge and the scholars, from the scholars and the students of knowledge and those who give sincere advice. In wajadu tawjihan, if they find any advice, O nasihatan, any direction or any advice, O an yubadiru biha, that you should hasten to give it, linaqumu bi ta'diliha, so that we can correct it or edit it. So if you find anything in here of any shortcomings, then the Sheikh, he said, we wish you to direct them to us and send them to us so that we can fix them right away. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. supplications is all praises due to Allah, the Lord of all creation. وصلي اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. And we ask Allah to send salat upon our Prophet Muhammad, upon his family, and all of his companions. And then he wrote this book in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, the 25th day. He finished this introduction, 25th day of Dhul Qa'dah in the year 1441, which is just less than 4 years ago. And he already has passed away, subhanAllah. It's equal to August 16th of 2020. And he died from COVID. So not so long after this book, he passed away. And he was in Amman, Jordan. And here was his phone number if someone wanted to contact him. But maybe the phone number works, maybe it doesn't. Since he passed away, Allah knows best. Are there any questions about this? طيب أبا محمد أنت معنا؟
نعم.
طيب. We're going to read the first and maybe the second section, inshallah. الفصل الأول الفصل الثاني, if we have time for فصل الثاني. But at least we'll get into كتاب الطهارة بإذن الله.
بسم الله. كتاب الطهارة, the book of purification, الفصل الأول. الأصل في المياه الطهارة. The origin in regards to water is that it's pure. والماء طاهر. في الماء الطهارة. Yeah, in regards to water in purification. والماء طاهر لا ينجسه شيء ما لم يتغير بالنجاسة. And water is pure and nothing makes it impure as long as it doesn't ما لم يتغير بالنجاسة, as long as it does not is not changed with impurities. فإذا تغير أحد أوصافه الثلاثة الطعم أو والريح واللون فقد تنجس. So if one of the three of the characteristics change, the taste, the smell, or the color, then it has indeed become impure. سواء كان أقل أو أكثر من قلتين, regardless of whether it is less than or more than قلتين, which is an amount. There's two amounts of is it like it's amount in قلة is one amount قلة or قلة.
قلتين. You got to go to books of fiqh to find out exactly what this is. Qullatain is an amount of water. A qulla is an amount of water. And they talk about how many liters it is and how many forearms it is and so on. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what the number of liters and all of this is. But inshallah, I'll look it up right now. So سواء أقل من أكثر أو أقل أو أكثر من قلتين. And this is an important issue here in the fiqh of Sheikh al-Albani, because most of the books of fiqh will say that if najasa falls in something smaller than aqall qullatain, smaller than qullatain, then it will still be najis. So, for example, you have a coffee can or a paint can, a small paint can, and a mouse falls in it. They would say that water is najis because the mouse fell in it, right? Or something like this, because it's smaller than qullatain. However, Sheikh al-Albani here is saying doesn't matter if it's more or less than qullatain. If the water doesn't change by one of these three, the ta'am, the taste, the rih, the smell, or the loan, the color, it still stays the same color it was. It has the same taste and it doesn't smell any different. Doesn't matter if it's a small or a large amount, then it does not become najis.
فالأصل الطهارة ما لم يتغير وصفه. So the origin, again, as you said, is that is purification, as long as the characteristics are not changed. وت- وترفع النجاسة بالماء الطاهر, and impurities are removed with the pure water. So um, وماء البحر, and the water of the sea. والماء المستعمل, and the water that is used. ويكره الاغتسال في الماء الدائم, and it is disliked to bathe in water that is still, yeah, not running. ويحرم البول فيه, and is forbidden to urinate in the still water.
No, exactly. Let's just go through it again real quick. Al aslu fil miyah at tahara. So the foundation or the original ruling for water is purity. والماء طاهر لا ينجسه شيء. And water is pure, nothing makes it najis. ما لم يتغير بنجاسة, as long as it is not changed by najasa. And that's an important point according to the Sheikh's ruling here. As long as it does not change. فإذا تغير أحد أوصافه الثلاثة, so if one of the three descriptions changes, a tam, the taste, والريح, the smell, واللون, the color, فقد تنجس, then it has become najis. سواء كان أقل أو أكثر من قلتين. And this is regardless if it is less or more than قلتين. So even if it's more than قلتين, if the flavor, the taste, and the color changes, then it's still najis. And if it doesn't and it's less than, then it's not najis. So even if it's greater, and here I looked up qullatain, they get to talking about they use like old Damascus terms, like things that were used back then, ratal and things like this. But a qulla, what they say now is basically equal to 102 kilograms. So qullatain would be 204 kilograms of water, however big that would be, then bigger or less than that, right? So the main thing here is for example, if someone dumps a bunch of najis stuff inside of something that is bigger than 204 kilograms of water, right? Then that water still becomes najis, right? If the color, the taste or the smell changes. فالأصل الطهارة ما لم يتغير وصفه. So the origin or the foundation is purity as long as its description is not changed. وترفع النجاسة بالماء الطاهر. And water is, or and najasa is lifted, najasa is removed by pure water. وماء البحر, and by water of the sea, in case someone thinks that water of the sea is not tahir, right? والماء المستعمل, and also by used water, meaning water that was used for wudu. So water that dripped off of your hands, water that dripped off of your face or something like that into the bowl, then this is ma al-musta'mal, right? Or leftover water from wudu, right? Then this will still remove impurities. ويكره الاغتسال في الماء الدائم, and it is disliked to take a bath inside of still water, like a swimming pool, right? And someone might say, well, some swimming pools have filters and the water does run. This is possible, right? But if you have a regular old swimming pool that you throw out in the back, it's disliked to take a bath in that water. ويحرم البول فيه, and it's prohibited to urinate in still water. A lake, for example, a lake doesn't necessarily run. It depends upon rain. That is still water. But a lake that is fed by a river or a stream, then this is different, right? This is different. طيب. We have time. Inshallah, we could read Fasl al-Thani, Abba Muhammad.
نعم. Um, دقيقة.
And inshallah, what we're going to try to do while we do this, when we go through this book, we're going to try to name these chapters. We're not just going to leave it at Fasl Awal, Fasl Thani. We're going to try to look at what was being talked about, what was being spoken about, and let's name that chapter. This is kind of like what a no we did to Sahih Muslim. The chapter titles in Sahih Muslim are not for Imam Muslim himself, right? Rather,
Yeah.
and no, we chaptered them. He gave them titles, and so let's give this book some titles so that we don't just look at Fasl Awal, Fasl Thani. So Fasl Awal, if we look at it, I would say we are talking about Al Miyah, right? Al Miyah, water, right? I guess the subject here is water. What types of water are there? Ma tahir, ma najis, right? And we have what does that water do? So Allah knows best. Al miyah. Fadl ya Aba Muhammad.
يكون التطهير بالماء ويكون بالاستحالة. So purification can happen by water أو يكون باستحالة. What is استحالة يا أستاذ؟
Al istihala is the changing of its original state into something other than it was in the beginning. And I'm sure that most of us are aware of an article that was translated, man, many years ago, 20 years ago or so, by Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul. It was written by Sheikh Muhammad Bazmul and it was translated about gelatin.
The gelatin. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Sheikh here talks about al istihala. And the confusing thing in here in this chapter, and what we must pay attention is if we read it, what does al istihala, talking about gelatin, have to do with what we're talking about here? Because the Sheikh is no longer talking about water necessarily. Now he's talking about how things become pure, right? How things become pure. So it's not just water anymore. It's about the water. It's about how something which is najis can become pure. So al istihala is the example that the Sheikh gave, and he's not the first one to give this example. Rather, he quoted scholars from the past who gave this example. So a pig we know is najis, but if it were to fall into the sea, a saltwater sea, and after many years, that carcass of the pig that was laying on the ground would turn into salt. And if you were to pick it up, it would just fall through your hands like salt. And it would just be salt. And if you were to analyze the ingredients of what that is, it would be salt. It would no longer be a pig. And so they use this example. So this istihala is something that can purify something. So another example, which is common for us, is vinegar. Vinegar is haram to make. Vinegar is haram to make. If you want to make vinegar, it's haram. However, because for something to become vinegar, it has to be alcohol first. So in order to make vinegar, you have to make alcohol, and making alcohol is haram. So, however, if something were to sit and become alcohol, and then we didn't pay attention to it, we put some fruit somewhere, we didn't pay attention, it became alcohol, and then after some more time, we still didn't pay attention to it, it became vinegar, and then we went and looked for our fruits and found out it was vinegar. It's permissible for us to use, right? It's permissible for us to use. Now, someone might say, what about vinegar in the store? They do it on purpose. Yeah, but we're not doing it on purpose. If someone does it on purpose, they did haram. The end result for us is permissible, but the process is impermissible if it's done purposefully. Is that clear?
No.
So this is istihala. Vinegar is pure through al istihala, right? ويكون تطهير
ويكون تطهير بالشمس والريح إذا لم يبقى أثر النجاسة. And also purification can take place by the sun and by wind if there does not remain any trace of impurity.
Exactly. This is important. For example, someone might have a nice coat, right? They might have a nice winter coat, and it says, do not machine wash, dry clean only. So, say you get some najasa on that coat and you send it to the dry cleaners. Pay attention to what's being said here. Dry cleaners, they're not going to use water on that coat. So, is it permissible? You had some urine or some feces or some meni or medhi. You had some of these things on your clothes, which are najis, not many, but medhi, right? So this is najis. You had these things on your dog licked your coat, right? Or certain bloods got on your coat and you sent it to the dry cleaners and they cleaned it. Is it clean? If you say no, you have to use water, then it's not clean. However, like the Sheikh said, ويكون التطهير بالشمس والريح إذا لم يبقى أثر النجاسة. It can be by the sun, it could be by wind, it could be by heat, right? It could be by a number of things like a dry cleaner would use, right? For your thobe or your abaya, whatever the case, when you send your clothes to the laundry, they're not always using water and how they clean things, right? And so uh, uh, this is important that purification can take place by sun, by heat, by wind, right? As long as the traces of the najasa are gone.
ويطهر الإناء الذي ولد فيه الكلب بغسله بالماء 7 أو 8 مرات وتأفيره مرة بالتراب. So, and
Nah.
then the vessel, so a vessel, whether it be a plate or cup, if a dog licks it, then it is, purified by washing it with water 7 times or 8 times, and ta'fir بمرة and I don't know what ta'fir means, but does it mean that one time is the first time, beginning with the turab, with sand?
One time. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read the sentence again because you broke up, and I thought, okay, when he reads it and he translated, it's gonna be clear, but it broke up in the same place. ويطهر الإناء الذي ولغ فيه الكلب. That the vessel that the dog licked, ولغ فيه, he licked it. يطهر, that vessel becomes clean. بغسله بالماء, becomes clean with washing it with water 7 أو 8 مرات, 7 or 8 times. And this is why does he say 7 or 8? Because there are a different wordings of the hadith, right? Different wordings and of the hadith. وتعفيره مرة بالتراب, and washing them or covering one of them one time with dust, with dirt. It doesn't matter which time it is. Is it the first time? Is it the last time? Is it a middle time? It does not matter. And there are different narrations of the hadith which say the first time with dust. Some of them say the last time with dust. And some of them just say marratan bitarab, one of them with dust or dirt. Well, we have to do it at least once. Doesn't necessarily matter which one. Sheikh Suleiman Raheli says, of course, it's not going to be the last one. You're not going to wash your dish and then make the last one with dirt, right? So make it with the first or just with one of them. As long as one of them has dirt when you wash it, then this is what the saliva of a dog, the saliva on a vessel that a dog licked, is purified with. وغيره,
وغيره من النجاسة لا تغسل 7. And other than that, from impurities that affect other than the dog licking, then it is not washed 7 times.
no. Any other
ويط
najasa You get
mm,
pig saliva or anything else. You don't have to wash it 7 times, 8 times, one of them with dirt, all that. No, you don't have. We're not going to make qiyas here. Every type of najis, we're going to have to use dirt and we're going to have to wash it 7 or 8 times. No, we're not going to make qiyas. This was with the dog. The hadith was narrated with the dog and not anything else. We're going to leave it at that. وَيَطْهُرُ.
و- ويطهر ما أصابه المذي بالنضح, and purification of what has been affected by madhi by sprinkling water.
No.
وبول الغلام الرضيء بالرش دون الجارية, and also the infant boy before he starts eating and he's being breastfed by sprinkling water, not the baby girl.
No. Dun al
Wow.
not the baby girl. So, وَيَطْهُرُ مَا أَصَابَهُ الْمَذْيُ. This is, medhi is pre-sperm or whatever. How do you clean that? With a nadah, with sprinkling water on it. That's how you purify it. Well, bowl al-gulam or radi', and the boy who is still breastfeeding and is not eating real food. Right? The boy who's breastfeeding and he's not eating real food. Not the one mixing between breastfeeding and real food, but the one who is relying upon milk, be rich by splashing water on it, doing a jari, and not the female. If the female who is still uh, breastfeeding, then hers needs to be washed, right? Hers needs to be washed, different than the boys. وَيَطْهَرُ.
ويطهر النعل ويطهر بالمسح بالعرض. Can I just get a bit more down? Sorry, yeah, it's a bit,
I'm sorry.
it takes a bit more. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. A bit more. Sorry, yeah, that's it. Perfect. And the shoe is purified by wiping it on the earth.
Now, how so many people, for example, we have these slippers that people wear to go to the bathroom in the masjid. And if someone were to wear those slippers too close to the musalla, or even someone wear them into the musalla, right? You say, Akhi, that was just in the bathroom. First off, we don't know that the bathroom is najis. Hopefully, everyone is cleaning after themselves, and the bathroom shouldn't be najis, even though it's a place of that where najis stuff goes. It doesn't mean that the whole bathroom is najis. We hope that it's clean. And unless we see ainu najasa, the actual najasa itself, then we can't say that something is najis. And if someone were to walk in an area where there is a lot of feces or urine, like a shepherd or something like this, a farmer dealing with animals or so on, then any najis that might come on his shoes is cleaned by the earth as he walks. Similar to the woman when the Prophet ﷺ told the men to have their clothes above their ankles and the women to have their clothes below their ankles by an arm's length. And then the women asked the Prophet ﷺ, well, what about any najasa that might come on her dress because she drug it on the ground? The Prophet ﷺ said, what comes after purifies what came before it. So the ground that the dress is dragging on will purify whatever she drug it through, right? And we have to see the ainu najasa, the najasa itself, not just something that we imagine. وَيَطْهُرُ النَّعْلُ بِمَسْحِهِ بِالْأَرْضِ. So how does a shoe become clean if you walk on something? By just walking on the earth, it'll become clean. وَالْإِهَابُ.
والإيهاب بالدبق ولو إيهاب كلب وخنزير. What is إيهاب? Okay.
Uh,
He said the double is like tanning, yeah. So it's something by
a dabq is tanning, right?
yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think of the word here for ihab. Well, ihab, the skin, the jild, The jild is another word for jild, the skin, the leather, the skin of the animal, like sheepskin, dog skin, bear skin, right?
Yeah.
والإهاب بدبغ ولو إهاب كلب وخنزير. So basically, the the skin becomes usable. The skin of the animal becomes usable by tanning it.
Yeah.
ولو إهاب الكلب وخنزير. Even the skin of a dog or a pig. And again, this is one of the maybe, I don't want to say strange opinions, but one of the not so famous opinions, not something that if you
Mm,
were to look it up, can we use
mm,
pig skin? So, for instance, people talk about football. Can we throw a football around as made from pig skin? Is it najis? These things are spoken about. Certain shoes. Are they made from pig skin or are they made from cow leather, but that cow wasn't killed properly? All of these things are discussed in books of fiqh. And it's nice to see people concerned about their religion, but it's equally as nice to see people wanting to learn what does the religion say about it. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Kullu ihab dubiga faqad tahura." That every skin which was tanned has become pure. This is the dalil that Sheikh Al-Albani uses, and he goes to say that does not matter if it's the ihab of a kelb or the ihab of a khinzir, right?
mm.
Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made us a rule, kullu ihabin dubiga faqad tahura, that every skin which was tanned is purified, right? In another wording, ayyuma ihab dubiga faqad tahura, that whichever skin is tanned, then it has become pure. And he says this enters under this the skin of a pig. People worry about hairbrushes. What kind of bristles are they using for hairbrushes? Right? They might use a pig skin or pig hair to make hairbrushes out of. All of these things are things to be, now they might use nylon, this or that, but many of these things are things that we have to uh, our religion concerns itself with and addresses. Here, the Sheikh says that even if it's a dog or a pig skin, then it's purified by tanning it. وإذا انصرف الرجل.
نعم. وإذا انصرف الرجل من صلاته فرأى على ثوبه أو بدنه نجاسة لم يكن بها عالما فصلاته صحيحة. So if a man he departs from his prayer, and he sees on his garment or his body some impurity, and he did not know that before his prayer, then his salah is correct.
No, Mr. Salat is correct. And we talked about this a little bit in the introduction when we talked about how An-Nawawi rahimahullah contradicted the madhab, right? When we said كذلك الإمام النووي وافق الحنابلة في القول ببطلان وضوءنا. فالشافعي حكموا على من صلى حاملا للنجاسة ناسيا أو جاهلا. So the Shafi madhab, they made the ruling that whoever prays carrying najasa forgetfully or ignorantly, meaning not knowingly, قالوا ببطلان الصلاة, then they say his salat is batil. وخالف النووي فقال بصحتها لو وجود الدليل الذي يمنع البطلان. Then the Nawawi differed with the Shafi madhab, and he said that the salat is correct due to the existence of an evidence which prevents it from being uh, nullified or made bata, the salat. So the Prophet ﷺ prayed with his shoes. He took off his shoes in salat. The Sahaba prayed in their shoes. They saw him take his shoes off, so they took their shoes off. After the salat, he asked them, "Why did you take your shoes off?" We said, "We saw you took your shoes off." And so he said, "I believe Jibreel alayhi salam came to me and informed me that on my shoes I had some najasa. So when one of you comes to the masjid, let him check his shoes before he prays in them." Right? So you should check your shoes. Of course, يطهر النعل بمسحه بالأرض. The shoe becomes pure by it touching the earth. But maybe there are grooves in the shoe's sole that don't touch the earth, and so therefore it's not clean. So we want to check our shoes. But if a person checks his shoes and cleans his shoes, then he should be able to pray in his shoes as long as he's not going to destroy the carpet by his shoes having some big like rough soles that's going to tear at it or something like that and mess it up. Then a person should be able to pray in his shoes. But if the people don't let him, then he shouldn't make a big fuss out of it. However, this hadith shows us that if a person prays and he has some najasa on him and he didn't know about it, right? Or he knew about it, but he forgot even, right? Then his salat is correct. ولا بد
ولا بد من إزالة أين النجاسة. And it's a must to remove. Is that the foundation or the essence of najasa or أين النجاسة?
Yeah, the essence, the najasa itself, the essence of the najasa, yes.
فإن تعذر يكفي الماء. So if it's impossible or
Yeah.
what is for
يكفي
sufficient?
الماء. So for example, if a person gets, changing his baby's diaper, or and he gets some feces on his thobe, you want to remove the feces itself, right? However, maybe there's still a stain. Right, from the feces on the clothing. This doesn't, and when you wash the rag, there might still be a stain on it after you wash the rag, right? If you can't remove it completely, at least use water to remove it, the najasa itself, and what's left behind, the traces, no problem, inshallah.
No. وكل نجس محرم. So every purity is impermissible.
No.
وليس كل محرم نجسا. And not everything that is forbidden is impure.
You
فالخمر
broke up for a second.
محرم.
You broke up for a second. 1 second.
Yeah.
وَكُلُّ نَجِسٍ مُحَرَّمٍ. Everything which is najis is muharram. So any animal which is najis is haram for us. وَلَيْسَ كُلُّ مُحَرَّمٍ نَجِسٍ. But not every animal which is haram, or not everything which is haram is najis. So
Yeah.
for example, the pig is najis, the dog is najis, it's also haram to eat them. But the cat is haram for us to eat, but the cat is not najis, right? Everything that's impermissible for us to eat doesn't mean that that thing itself is najis. So a falcon or a buzzard or a vulture, it's not permissible for us. That doesn't mean that it's najis, right? But it's impermissible for us for other reasons. فالخمر
فالخمر محرم وليس نجسا. So alcohol is forbidden, but it is not impure.
نعم فالخمر محرم. So khamr is haram. وليس نجسا, but it's not najis. If someone accidentally spills khamr on you, right? Then this is not najis. It's not najis. You can't say, oh, I can't pray with this shirt because somebody splashed. I was sitting somewhere on the bus and some guy spilled his drink and it got on my pants leg or something. No. Yes, it's haram, but it's not najis. Yes, it's haram, but it's not najis. Right? And this would also go even though this khamr, and there's a difference between khamr and alcohol. There's a difference in Arabic between alcohol and khamr, right? Khamr is an intoxicant. Alcohol is something different. So for example, the alcohol that you might wipe a wound with, it's not something you can get drunk off of. In fact, if you drink it, you'll probably die. You get very sick, but not from intoxication. You'll get sick from this. So many people complain about the alcohol in perfumes. This alcohol that's in perfumes is not alcohol of khamr, of an intoxicant. The word alcohol in English has both meanings. It has 98% alcohol, 2% probable alcohol, whatever the stuff, whatever the numbers are. And we have the word alcohol for like rubbing alcohol, and we have alcohol for drinking alcohol. In Arabic, they're two different things. In Arabic, they're two different things. So someone might say, well, for example, perfume has alcohol in it. That perfume is najis. No, first off, just because it's haram doesn't mean it's najis. Just because something is haram doesn't mean it's najis. But the alcohol in perfume isn't even alcohol, isn't even drinking alcohol in the first place. It's a different type of alcohol, and Allah knows best. What are we going to call this chapter? At-tathir.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tathir sounds good. We'll
Yeah.
start with that, inshallah.
Yeah.
We can look it up and we can ask some people to help us out with this. And inshallah, we'll try to make it the book more complete. Any questions about what we covered today? Jazakumullah khairan. I hope you guys found it beneficial. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow with Fasl al-Thalith, the third section. My advice is for you to read ahead, be familiar with what's going on before we get there. Read these sections that we read today over, until it becomes understandable to you in English and the concepts are clear to you. And if you have any questions as well, if you read ahead, then you'll say, what did he mean by this? Or what evidence did he use? You'll have an educated question by reading ahead. And I appreciate everyone who gave me likes and comments in the videos yesterday. I see more people did it, and it helped out spread the video a little bit better. So jazakumullah khairan. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.